Live, live, live. We are live, guys. It's really early, actually,
Yes.
to be live. It's 7 a.m. Mountain Time, 8 a.m. Central Time, 6 a.m. Pacific Time. If you're watching this later on YouTube or listening, it doesn't matter what time it is. Okay, it's your time, and we've got CRA Academy. One of our instructors, Jeslyn Atanu. Her link
Oh,
to her LinkedIn is underneath here. She's a really amazing person. She's like a real generalist. She's been in a lot of different roles in research, and then she teaches 3 bonus classes every CRA academy. And so how has that been so far, actually, Jocelyn?
it has been amazing. The students are amazing. They are loving these classes, and the entire CRE Academy program is truly a wealth of knowledge. So the feedback has been nonstop amazing.
Which one is your favorite to teach, and then which one's the most popular?
Mm.
Are they the same?
So, that is truly a hard question. I love your hard curveball questions, Dad. I would say my favorite will be the third of the bonus classes that I offer, which is the advice, tips, and tricks that new CRAs and transitioning CRAs would need once they start working. There's so much to know and to learn that is not the theoretical part of being a CRA. And that's the one part that a lot of people don't ever get. They always get the this is what I do when I go on site. This is how I monitor. They don't get um, the part where it advises you about time management and all of that fun stuff that no one ever tells you about. So that is my favorite. Ironically, the EKG class seems to be the one class that a lot of people have more questions on, which is quite interesting. But yeah, it is a tie between the EKG and the last bonus class offered, which is how to be a successful CRA.
Yeah, I could imagine the EKG one is the most technical. Uh,
It is.
that's probably the only one that I wouldn't know how to teach. So I've watched that a few times. I still gotta go in
Mhm.
there and brush up on the
Yeah.
details, but it's good that for the students we have the replays are available
Yes,
for you guys.
absolutely.
Okay, cool. So maybe just you've had a stint. Oh, you've had a stint at a CRO. You've had like a few different
Yeah.
stints in research. Like, what are maybe some takeaways from you that maybe people are not expecting that have not worked in the industry or maybe haven't worked in the
Mhm.
different roles that you have?
The one that is becoming more popular is burnout. The burnout is real. And even though it's becoming spoken about more often now, the reality of it hits you like a rock. So it's just learning to find that balance, and you have to be intentional about it. So don't go into it and wait for the situation to give you okay, I need to find some time to relax or to take care of me. Go in already being prepared to deal with the potential burnout. So that's the one thing is I guess people are so excited to get on and get the job. They don't ever pause to think, well, how am I going to manage my work life balance? So, first thing is get yourself prepared. Start learning what it is that stresses you out, what it is that calms you down, and find that balance on the moment you start getting the work stress. Do what you need to do to balance. For me, it's coffee. So I already have my coffee ready. I know it's
Yeah,
8 a.m. here.
got me amped.
See, yep. So definitely work life balance is to find something that helps keep you calm and helps keep you centered. And the second thing is work culture. The work culture is really, really important, especially because clinical research is so fast paced, it's very intense, if you have a company or CRO, farm or a site where the culture is toxic or the people you work with are toxic, ooh, that's going to be really, really horrible to have to contend with. Yeah, and I personally had that experience in one of the CROs I worked with. It was more of the line manager that was just crazy toxic. So I had to
Mhm.
make a choice for my own mental health. And I was like, no, this is not going to work. So definitely just two things is to find out work-life balance and what centers you, what keeps you calm in stress, and to be sure that you have a good culture in the place you work with, which you never know until you get there. But once you get there, you have to make that decision of if your mental health is worth risking the pay.
It never is, and yes, those situations are terrible. As a
Yes.
business owner, I try to eliminate that as soon as I see it, but sometimes it creeps in.
Yeah.
If you're not careful, even on the other
Yes.
side, like it could creep in, even from a management perspective, and you've got to work really hard to create that culture. Okay, Jesselyn,
Absolutely.
so, and this is why it's so important to be a generalist.
Yeah.
Uh, if you don't like a place that you're working, like when you're first starting out, you just take whatever job you get. That's
Truth.
fine. You're
Yeah.
building a skill set, but it's important to get a diverse uh, plethora of skills at your arsenal so that you can, because what having that skill set does is it makes you a desirable candidate for another position somewhere else if
Yeah.
you don't like where you're currently at. And a lot of people
Absolutely.
don't have that, and a lot of work environments don't foster that. So it's on the individual to do that. That's why we that's why we teach from a generalist perspective at the CRA Academy. And one of the reasons why you're one of the instructors.
Indeed.
Okay, let's go one by one. The first technical skill everyone should learn: EKG.
Yes.
So let's go with that one.
So EKG, in the CRA Academy class, I teach more of the theoretical parts, which I would go ahead and label as the foundational knowledge. Ideally, you will need to go through a training program, which, depending on the program you go to, it's roughly about 3 months to actually learn to do an EKG or be an EKG tech. But in the setting of clinical research and for the purpose of getting that foundational knowledge, I do my best to condense it into one session. And the goal there is the foundational knowledge because there is a basis of understanding that you would need in order to successfully know what EKG is about. So it's building
Yep.
that foundational knowledge. And then depending
I
on
recommend this
night,
book. I bought this.
uh-huh.
I recommend it. We don't give this out in the academy because we're not
Hmm.
EKG techs. But
Nope.
for those, and you don't even need to do the academy to just, I think I spent like $12 on Amazon. And this book has, you know, probably everything Jeslyn touches on in her
Yeah.
course, like, but in more detail, but what she teaches in that, what, like an hour session?
Yes, roughly an hour. It goes over every time, but
It just,
roughly an hour.
it shows you where you need to look further, basically. Like, you're not
Yes.
going to come out of that. Maybe you will, knowing how to read a EKG, but you'll at least know like the concepts of like where you need to brush up
Yes.
on.
Yes. So one of the things that is touched on is the EKG, the lead placements, which for CRAs is beneficial because when you're on site, if you have maybe a cardiology study and you have to monitor, and perhaps that study is the one where they have a printout or a copy of a printout in the subject's binder or chart or whatever the case may be, you possibly needing to look and see, okay, is it there and blah, blah, blah. If you do have one of those where they actually have the EKG strip, well, are you just going to look at it and say, oh, there's a pretty paper in in the subject's chart? You kind of want to see because there are little things like, well, did the EKG print out well? Were there artifacts? There's some little things that you can just eyeball on the spot you're not the PI, so you're not supposed to interpret it. But there are little things that you can pick up on that's touched on in the class. And definitely that book will help you in picking up on some things. But yes, in the class, I do go over a lot more in depth as possible, to touch on little things that as a CRA you can pick up on when you do have a study to monitor and an EKG is used.
Can you give like three things? Maybe not everyone's gonna join the CRA Academy after watching this. Maybe a few.
You should.
Uh, the link is underneath the CRAacademy.com. But the
Mhm.
like top three things that a newbie should focus on when it comes to understanding EKGs.
So I would say the top three things is understanding what the EKG is telling you. So the EKG is basically reading the electrical activity of the heart, right? So, well, what does the actual graphing on the paper? I'm trying to make this in as simplistic terms as possible. The printout, what is it telling you? What does all of the lines represent? What do the boxes, the small and big, what do they all represent? So that's the first thing I would say. Understand what it's telling you. Second thing to learn is what is right and wrong on the actual EKG printout. So, like I was just mentioning a few seconds ago, in terms of sometimes when an EKG is printed out, depending on how the leads are placed, it may print out wrong. And one of my favorites, well, not necessarily favorites, one of the craziest experience I had was an EKG that was printed out, and it indicated that that patient was literally having a stroke. And of course, the staff who printed the EKG and did the whole EKG did not know how to read and just pick up on little things. So did the EKG, follow the law, sent the patient home, and before you know it, the patient had a stroke.
Wow,
So
so the EKG can show that stuff. What was it? Do you remember like the technical things? Like maybe not the exact numbers,
so
but what was it like the concept?
So basically, on the EKG, when it's printed out, it tells you the rhythm of the heart. So it tells you if the patient is tachycardic, if they're bradycardic. There are a lot of like different sinus rhythms that it tells. So based on the rhythm that prints out, it tells you what is going on with the patient's heart. So based on that, you can kind of like tell little things like, okay, hey, this patient's heart is beating so dangerously slow, or it's like beating way too fast. So this is a sign that something's going on. Let's, delve a little deeper clinically. So it's the patient's chart, excuse me, the patient's EKG was indicative that something was going wrong. And the staff, I don't know if the staff wasn't paying attention or wasn't familiar with what was going on. So the staff did not know. She just printed out the EKG, put it on the PI's desk, and the PI wasn't available, so it got drowned on some papers. So yeah, so just knowing how to read the EKG, and you don't necessarily need to know, okay, I need to know every EKG rhythm, I need to know all of that. Even on YouTube, our favorite place to go apparently, it does have some rhythm strips that you can practice and learn the different rhythms that exist and just get familiar with what it looks like on paper. And that book will be another one. I do have some EKG books that I also use to refresh my memory as well, especially for the training.
Do you have this one or do you have another one?
Um, the one I have is actually used to prop up my computer, but I
Ah,
have a version of that. Let's see if I
there's
can
so
zoom
many
in
good
this.
ones out there. Like even
Yes,
like you said, YouTube alone, it's the interest and the desire to do it. Like you don't even need to spend. Oh, yours is even
yes,
more like thorough, looks like. Wow.
yes. So actually, this is the book I use when I actually trained to learn to be an EKG tech. So
Hmm.
this is one of the two books that I have. Yeah, excuse me. And I have, this is part of the assignments I have. I have this EKG strip that I created, and it basically gives me all of the different EKG rhythms. On one side, I made this myself, by the way.
Wow.
And whoops, it tells me the different rhythms. So it's like,
Wow, you did this.
so,
You know,
oh,
making
I was
cards,
ready. Yeah.
the way I learned, especially in college and even now if I'm trying to learn something different, I do write it down.
Mhm.
Uh, Not necessarily making cards. I mean, that's the next step, but just writing down, transmitting, even if it's like just redundant, but writing down, like let's say a protocol,
Yeah.
writing it in my own words, what I just read and
Mhm.
like what I think are the most important parts. That alone helps me learn something. So just the
Yes.
act of doing something like active, right? Not passive learning.
Yeah.
Like passive learning would be sitting here watching us do this, right? Or watching you, like if you're in the CRA Academy, watching your presentation. Active learning
Mhm.
would be at least writing it down or developing flashcards of what you're saying or going a step further. It's just to me, it's a you can't cheat yourself as much when you force
No.
yourself to write because you force yourself to
Yes.
just focus. Like when you're listening, your mind can wander. You can do
Right.
you can kind of cheat, but when you're
Yep.
writing it, you can't. There's nothing else.
The focus becomes intensifies, and that's literally one of my favorite words is that intentionality. Is you literally have to be intentional about your learning, about your career, about being a CRA. It's the intentionality. And even with coming to the CRA Academy, all the teachers, all of the resources that's presented, we are here to help you. We provide you with all that we can to help you, but at the end of the day, if you are not doing the work, if you're not taking ownership of your education and your learning, there's only so much that you're going to be able to get from it. Because one of the favorite things my grandmother always tells me is, well, you can force a horse to the water, but you cannot make it drink.
Yeah,
So it's like we can give you all of these resources and all of this information, but if you're not doing the work to learn it and retain it,
yeah. It's
so
not going to be very beneficial or as optimal.
yes.
Okay. Did we cover EKGs enough, or one more thing that you need to mention before we move on?
I think we covered it.
It's pretty technical. That's
Yeah.
the most technical one. I could see how that's the one you get the most questions on.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
thought it was important enough. Almost every study has EKG,
Yeah. And
and it's
some
such a
don't.
even for CRC, well, even more for CRCs maybe
Yeah.
to learn it. And I know you teach that in the CRC Academy as
Yes.
well. But for
Yeah.
CRAs also, like it helps to understand this stuff when
Oh,
you're
yeah.
monitoring. I think it makes you. What if the PI or the sub I is just NCS, by default, just because they're busy? You can question like, "Hey, I'm not a doctor. I
Yeah.
don't want to step on your toes, but like this
You
QTC
sure this
interval,
is
yeah."
not clinically significant?
And a
No.
lot of these protocols have EKG
Yeah.
safety things, like if the
Yeah.
QTC interval is over 500, or they always have something like that,
Yeah.
PQR, QCPR. Like you need to know these things well and not just know them as words and numbers, but actually know what they mean. It's helpful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you for teaching that part.
Indeed.
What's the
Indeed.
next one? You said organizing or
Oh, so the second thing is we talk about the clinical research systems that are used by pretty much all clinical researchers, the sites, and the sponsor CROs as well. But yeah, it's the second thing we touch on.
there's a lot. So how do you teach that? Because I actually have not listened to one of these sessions. I've only listened to the EKG one because of selfish reasons.
Yeah.
But where do you even
That's
start with
understandable.
where do you start with all these things?
So with that, I would say it's arguably the it's arguably the hardest class to teach just because there are so many softwares that are out there, and with this world becoming more technological, there's so much, like so many softwares coming out there. So with that, I literally focus on introducing the different softwares to them, make them aware, okay, well, what is a CDMS? What is a CTMS? What's a TMF? What's an EDC? So again, that's the one thing. And from me coming into clinical research, those are things that I was never taught. Those are things I never found out until I got on site and the monitor showed them like, hey, such and such study. We did the um, monitoring training, excuse me, the study protocol training, and it's like, okay, here are the laundry list of softwares you're going to need to use. What?
Yeah.
Not only do I have to learn the protocol, now I have to learn a whole new software. Like, what's happening? So those are things that I never really got the opportunity to learn. It was just kind of like a blitz attack. So in this bonus class, which is the second of the three offered, I do focus on the introduction of the different softwares, what they do, and to help students realize that, okay, hey, when it comes to entering the study visit, all of that stuff that I've gotten from the site, I put it in CTMS. But hold on, there's also the TMF, there's the ETMF, there, EDC, there are all of these things when I am doing my study SDV, SDR. Well, am I doing that on paper? Am I doing it in thin air? Like, where am I doing this?
It's
So,
crazy how much stuff there are. Like one of my coordinators that's relatively new the other day asked me, um, "Oh, what's like IRT?" Because she's been using EDC, she's been using the other portals, and I said, "Yeah, we need a screen fail on the IRT." So it just teaching like why these portals even exist, I think is the like a huge unlock just doing that. Like,
yes.
I'm looking at a Versatrial right now for one of my studies. So
Okay.
there's a IRT link, there's a training link, there's a invoicing link, there's SIP,
Mhm,
which is Shared Investigator Portal platform. There's a ECOA
mhm,
link, which is a patient-reported outcomes. There's a payment link to pay patients. There's a shortcut to a protocol. There's a central recruitment vendor link. There's a lab link, a IRB link, SUSARS, EDC, another lab link, and a Judy, which is a SAE reporting.
okay.
Look at
Oh, nice.
that's just for one trial.
Yep.
Another one has like 15 links. So understanding why for someone
Yep.
new, I
It's
think is
critical.
a huge unlock because then you can get into bothering with the details. If you don't
Yes.
understand why, you're gonna ignore it because it's intimidating. Like, why do I need all these links?
Yep. And you won't even begin to know how to use it and how to use it efficiently because one of the things I tell students in all the different avenues that I work and mentor people is, especially with technology, the information is as good as what you put into it, right? So as capable as tech is, it is still not human, and it literally relies on the information you feed into it. So if you put wrong information in it or flawed or incomplete, well, your data is going to be skewed.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's just the links, guys and gals, to what the sponsor and CRO provided. That's not our site eSource, eReg, CTMS. Those are different links. Those
yep.
are site specific. And when you're a CRA, if one site might be using paper, another site might be using Creo. Shout
Oh
out
yeah.
to them. Another site might be using real time. So you got to learn all these things in addition to what is mandated on that study. It's a
Oh yeah.
lot. It's people definitely underestimate this.
Oh yeah. Technology definitely is creeping more and more into clinical research, and that's the one thing that I would advise for new and transitioning clinical researchers as a whole is make technology your best friend
How can
because
they
it's
do
here.
that though? Like if you don't, because I agree, but I'm not sure how outside of our academy where you do get to play with like some of this stuff
Yeah.
to do it like in the wild.
It is really unfortunate. There's not a lot of spaces. I believe Korea does have an avenue where you can at least learn or get a little insight onto it, right? I
I
believe
think
so.
all
Or
of
is it
most of
Viva
them
Vote?
do. Viva Site Vault has something.
Okay.
You have to register as a site, and it's absolutely free.
Okay. Nice.
Um, there's probably roundabout ways of playing with this stuff, but
Hmm.
basically creating accounts, logging in, like that GCP, the free GCP training link,
Yes,
the
that's
free
one.
IATA training link. Those are
Mhm.
portals. You gotta have basic understanding of creating a password,
Mhm.
registering. I mean, that stuff takes time. All that stuff takes time.
Yeah. So it's just those little things. And while you may not have access to a lot of these softwares and these products, it's little things like learning how to use a computer, as simple and basic as that sounds. It's amazing. There's some people who are not like savvy with using a PC or a
Mhm,
laptop. Learning that Gmail, so learn how to set up accounts, creating passwords, saving the password, securing your password, learning how to like navigate between two systems. Like in some studies, depending on how you monitor, each monitor does your monitoring different. um, I had a monitor who I actually started adopting her approach, which I loved. Is when I was on sites, I was like doing my EDC and then I was updating CTMS in real time, so that by the time I was done with the sites, I can go home and just, or at least go to my hotel room and just kind of like have a zen moment because of the madness of that 8 hours on site.
mhm,
But just little things like learning how to like work with two different systems, two different computers, learning how connections, well, what happens if your password, gets lost? What happens if your PC powers down? Like those little technical things you can start working on. And then of course, when you get into the position where you have access to these different softwares, take advantage. And this is where I always mentor my people on is don't just stop at what you have access to. Push the envelope and try to get more, learn more. Once you get into the sites of the CRO, it may be hard, it may be tasking. Thankfully, Dan, I know your site, you literally allow your staff like breathe and grow their knowledge, but take advantage and learn the systems that the site uses, learn how it works. You have to take
mhm.
advantage of the opportunities you get.
And learn the lingo. Absolutely
Yeah.
right. One of the other instructors that you know, Ashley Margot, who was on
Mm,
last week to do live
nice.
with us. She actually teaches like how to organize your Outlook inbox
Mhm.
and calendar. I mean, those are like important skill set. If you're a monitor, you gotta at least, even if you have one study, you're gonna have
Mhm.
like 5 sites, maybe
Mm,
more, maybe a little less, somewhere around 5, let's call it. How do you know
yeah.
which task or which email is for which site? You got to organize
Yeah.
your inbox at least with folders to keep
Mhm.
the communications separate. So when you have an issue with a site, you don't need to look for other stuff. You look for
Nope.
in that folder. It's just simple things like that that save a
It
lot of
matters.
time, and it
It
does
really
matter.
does.
And then, oh, let's go cut to some of the comments. By the way, if you have questions for myself or Jocelyn, put them on here. Frank says, always learning new things, watching this space. This is what it's all about.
Nice.
Alicia, who's coming to
Yes.
SOS, I learned how to do active learning a long time ago. It truly helps to understand the material. Absolutely
Absolutely.
agree. And then
Yes.
LinkedIn user, degree in healthcare and pharma compliance. Which role
Ooh.
would you recommend pursuing, CRA or CRC? I'll leave that one for you.
Oh, great. Thanks, Dan.
I know what I'm gonna say, but probably they're
Yeah.
not gonna like it.
No,
Um,
I'm pretty much going to say the same thing if I'm guessing right. So, my universal suggestion for all people, especially coming into clinical research, is always CRC. That arguably is the heartbeat of being a clinical researcher. The wealth of knowledge you're going to get there is just, there are just no words to be able to help you understand how much you learn as a CRC, especially if you're in a small site where you're used to basically do everything. You're the reg, you are the data, you're everything. You learn so much that once you grow into your desired clinical research role, maybe that's a CRA, it's a CTM, or it's a project manager, whatever that case is. Once you grow out of CRC into that role, what you know will help you so much. What you learn as a CRC will help you so much. One of my colleague and really good friend, I won't call her name because she will probably die of embarrassment, but she started as a CRC, same setup, and I started as a CRC as well. And growing into our positions now, when she would go on site or when I went on site, is I was able to pick up on certain things that if I went straight into being a CRA, I would have never have caught as a CRA. And
Yep.
it's because I learned how to be a CRC first. So to answer your question, I would strongly suggest CRC first.
Me too. That's exactly what I would have said. Um, yeah, I mean, you can always tell, and sure, there are people who can get other roles without site level
Mhm.
experience, and
True.
that they're successful. But the easiest, or not the easiest, the highest probability of success would be CRC first,
Yeah.
because there's more sites out there. There's more CRC roles than CRA roles. CRA is not an entry level role at all. Uh,
It's tough.
would would you recommend applying to CRC CRA training roles at a CRO or directly through the site? Uh, if they have these things, I know the CRAs sometimes have, like, for RNs or for international medical graduates, CRA like courses. They're by invite
Mhm.
only. You can do that. Sites don't have this. Sites will take you research naive.
Yeah.
That's related to the topic Jeslyn and I just answered, basically. Um,
Mm.
or you can do something like CRA Academy, because it actually gives you real internship experience too.
Yes.
The average pay of a CRC, it's very location dependent, even in the
Yeah.
US. And then average of what? Average of a brand new CRC is going to be very different than average of an experienced CRC.
Yes. In
Even
clinical
at my
research,
own site,
key. Experience is
it
key.
experience is everything. Even at my own site, where we have the most experienced person is a year and a half, the least
Nice.
experienced person is 2 weeks. There's a wide range between those two salaries and pay
Mm.
because of ROI. Like, what can they actually do right now for me? And
Mhm.
it changes really quickly as a CRC at one of these small sites.
Oh.
So if you want to give, like, force me to quote, I would say anywhere from 45,000 a year to over 100,000 a year, depending on location, the site, your experience level, and how
That's true
successful.
because in here in the Texas area, those ranges kind of scale down a little lower. So definitely location is key. And what I would suggest you do, Frank, is I would suggest you kind of like Google like the sites in your area, just maybe on LinkedIn here, just see all the different CRC positions that are available in your area. And some of the positions do post what the pay will be. See what that pay range is in your area because it literally is dependent, as Dan perfectly said. It depends on location and experience. Those two
Yeah.
things matter.
In Yuma, Arizona, we start out at 16 an hour, and then we go, which is, believe it or not, like, higher than the local average for ancillary roles like medical assistants or
Mm,
CNAs. But then really quickly we escalate the pay, like
nice.
within 3 months, then another three, and then you start reaching a, like, kind of not a ceiling but a plateau until your next step. So right around that year and a half mark, you have to
Mhm.
start doing other things at the site to earn more, like quality assurance or biz dev.
Oh,
And this is where the individual's inclinations factor into. Like, not everyone's going to be good at patient recruitment or QA/QC, but if you are at both, that's the case. But somewhere like on the East Coast, I think it would be higher. Like, the good barometer is what is an experienced medical assistant making? And
hmm,
because that's
that's a good
probably
one.
what a starting CRC is going to make at a small site, maybe a little more, but
Okay.
like in our case, it's a little more. Um, but then it moves up quickly. That's the difference between a CRC and like a MA. MA is kind of stays there
Yeah.
forever, really, and the CRC is just 3 months, then another three. At least the way we do it. Um, So it moves quickly. It's not where you start is not where you're gonna finish.
Yep.
Headed in a CRC broad-based direction, then gotta get that CRC Academy training. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jeslyn teaches CRC Academy as well.
Yes.
All right, we paused for questions. So the last topic, what is it? The your favorite one.
Oh, my favorite CRA Academy training, which is how to be a successful CRA or CRC, just how to be a successful clinical researcher. Yet again, and that's the intentionality of choosing these bonus classes here at the CRA Academy is the things that nobody teaches and or tell you. Little
Exactly right.
things.
And by the way, we, not we, I, when I we had places, I wanted additional classes for the CRA Academy and
Uh-huh.
Monica for the CRC.
Mm-hmm.
I selected Jeslyn because I know her and everything she's done.
Mm-hmm.
And I basically said, look, I love the EKG thing. Let's do that. And the
Mm-hmm.
other two classes, you pick what you want to teach because I know you know the market better than me. You know the struggle at least at the entry level role because
Yeah.
you experienced that more recently than I did, and
Yeah.
you're more current what those two things are. So these are like her. She curates these and she can change it like in a year. If she's like,
Yep.
no, I'm gonna modify this and do this. It's Jeslyn. That's Jeslyn. She's not really getting like orders from anyone. This is her unfiltered thoughts.
And believe me, they are critical, which is the intentionality of choosing them. I didn't choose these classes because this is what I wanted to hear myself say. I mean, if I really wanted to hear myself speak, I could just record my voice and just replay it in my, just in my home. But the choice of these classes is what you need to know, not necessarily what you would like to know, because you may like to hear things that are not needed. So the choice of these classes are critical because these are things that literally affect your work life balance. They ultimately affect patient care, they affect your mental health. And if you're not careful in knowing the job you're doing, learning how to do it as effectively and as efficiently as possible, it will affect you and the work you do. Period. So, with the third bonus class on how to be a successful clinical researcher, I was intentionally choosing that because there are things discussed such as time management. I mean, what are the odds of you being taught how to manage time? And that might seem like, oh, it's simple, but it really isn't as simple as you might think it is, because there are strategies that you need to use, know, and employ to manage your time. And one person might think, oh, I'm such an amazing time management. I manage my time so well, until you become a clinical researcher and it's like, whoa, maybe I need to work on this. It
Yes,
matters.
it
Organizational
matters.
skills. You talked about that a few minutes ago, Dan, with Ashley's class, which, hey, Ashley, I don't know if you're watching this or we watched this. It's been a
She
minute,
watch.
but nice. But that is yet another critical thing. And we do touch on that in the third bonus class is how to be organized. Because, yes, you will get, depending on where you work, the CRO form and what's, utilization they decide to use you on, you may get two different studies. And each of those studies, if you're lucky, you may get just three for each study. So two studies, 3 sites apiece, that's 6 different sites. They will give you the protocol, they'll give you any of the learning materials that you need to learn. They're not going to sit there and teach you. Here you
No.
go, figure it out. And you better do it
Yes.
well too. So you have to learn the protocol. Of course, they'll give you some kind of like training, like seminars and all that good stuff. But you have to go learn that. Well, how are you going to manage scheduling your sites, the visits? How are you going to manage and organize yourself to travel to the different sites? Well, you definitely don't want to send any of your monitoring letters to the wrong sites for the wrong study. So there are those little things that you need to know. And again, that's the intentionality of choosing that is these are things that people next to never tell you. Thankfully for Dan, for Chris, and all of the different players that are willing to put good information out there, thankfully we have those few, and it's slowly but surely increasing. But these are things no one really will tell you and train you on. No one.
I struggle the most with time management, and actually, I can
Mm.
already see it in some of my new employees. So I came up with this the other day. I didn't come up with
Oh,
this, but I
okay.
learned this from a business person like 2 decades, like 15 years ago. So when whether you're a CRA or CRC or anything, okay, you're
Mhm,
getting bombarded. Even if, like you just said, one study with 6 sites, things start
mhm,
happening day one. Like SAE occurs at one site, deviation
mhm.
occurs at another, a new staff occurs at another. There's just
So
it's
much.
overload from like day
Mhm.
one. So
Yeah,
how do you know what to do? Well, and this you won't know this like right away because
very
you
important.
are so
Very.
urgent, important.
Mhm.
That's number one. Urgent, not important. That's
Yes.
number two. Not important, not urgent, but important. Number three.
Mhm.
And not urgent, not important. You know how many things fall into this category that people spend time on? People spend time on not urgent, not important when they have urgent, important things they need to do. Now,
Mhm.
the caveat is like learning which one's which. And sometimes your employer dictates that,
Yeah.
or sometimes you have to figure it out. And that's another thing that comes with experience is
Oh yeah.
learning what in what category.
Truth. And what I will definitely suggest will help with that is critical thinking. I cannot begin to stress how important that is. It does require you to put a lot more pressure in using this, using your mind, using your head, and think. But when anything comes your way, is ask yourself, is this urgent? Is it critical? Is it important? Does this require my energy right this second? Can it wait 5, 10 minutes, an hour? Which put them in like a priority, put them in order. Which one will be the most important to get done first and faster? That is literally a good one. I actually just learned that not too long ago. I need to delve deeper into that. So thanks for sharing that. So for the new class coming in, the next year academy starts January. What's that?
The week of January 7th.
7th. Nice. So
Or
definitely that's going to be something I'm going to incorporate into our bonus class number 3 for that group is more in depth on that because that makes the world of difference.
yeah,
It's,
and just sometimes just a checklist too. Like I've had checklists. I'm not an organized person, and I'm talkative, and uh like there's a lot that I don't do well when it comes to organization and
mm,
time management. It's probably my weakness, but I to at
I could
least
not tell.
oh no, like it's terrible. But I actually keep like checklists. So
Mm,
and these are like the I have like basically the first three categories here, like urgent, important. I don't put not urgent, not important here, but I
okay.
put all the other three on here. And it's just a checklist. Like every day, did I do this? And then
Yeah.
it's amazing how the day can get away from you when something unexpected happens that
Oh
you
yeah.
just transfer your checklist over to the next day. You don't forget, the things that that you need to figure out. And at
Absolutely.
least I keep myself on track that way. But it's tough. It's really a skill set that you need to master in
Yeah.
this case.
And say that's amazing. You raise up something interesting that I think the audience will want and need to know is nobody is perfect. Everyone has strengths, everyone has weaknesses. The catch is you have to identify your weaknesses and find a way to work on those. So, like then you said you were, I can't believe this, but
Yeah.
If you say it, I'll work with you on that. You said your organizational skills is one of your weaknesses. Like I said, it's I could hardly tell, and you just explained why because you've identified your weaknesses, and there are things you're doing to keep yourself, on top of
Yep.
that part, and that helps a lot because again, perfection is an illusion. Nobody's perfect. So the people who appear, oh my God, you look so organized, well, they have little things they're doing to keep themselves organized, to check themselves, and to catch things. And in clinical research, one of the critical things is attention to details. And being organized will help you catch those little details. Again, you have to know what is priority and what isn't. So, how you going to determine that? So, it's that critical thinking is looking at and assessing the things that you're doing to making sure that it fits.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah,
I'm a business owner, so I
talk of
can get
it.
away I could get away with it because I when I hire someone or when I'm training when somebody's like basically given a task of for that business keeping me on track. So that's important for all the businesses, whether it's the CRA Academy or Yuma Clinical Trials or
Mhm.
DSCS, or like somebody's job is to keep me on track, and we actually do it with checklists. Like my site director, not the site director, but the lead CRC at my site, Yuma Clinical Trials.
Mm,
Every week she gives a checklist to every staff member, including myself. So I get one. Like these are things that she. So that keeps me on task, right? And then when I was a CRA, I couldn't do this. I didn't have this luxury. So I had to really make a concerted effort to become that person for myself.
mm.
Like keep my don't do anything else right now but monitor, right? I know you're going to get a client call or something at one of your other businesses is happening, but no, when
Mhm.
I was monitoring for those 3 years, I was like on the days I was monitoring,
Yeah.
I was just in that mode of just that's the only way to do it. You cannot.
Focus.
Yes, you have to, and you have to prioritize. And I'm really glad you're teaching that
Yes.
these bonus classes. You wanted to share a little bit about what you do. You have like networking. You're like networking master.
Crowd. I am definitely learning and growing as much as I humanly can. But it's Crown, the Clinical Research Organized Women's Network. It's basically a network. It's named for women because that's where my heart is, that's where the focus is. I know we need more resources for clinical research as a whole, but women also need that support. But definitely it's welcome to all clinical researchers. But it's basically a networking opportunity for people in clinical research to come together. They send questions, resources. I just help people to understand certain things, certain nuances, and to be a resource, not just me. There's some mentors that we do have with Crown that will mentor you on just the in betweens of when you get through with the different training programs you go through, the CRA Academy, CRC Academy, wherever you learn to be a clinical researcher. Well, once that's said and done, what happens? So it's just to have a network and a resource where we can just kind of like have camaraderie and just be supportive of each other. And as much as I would love to have everyone in Crown, I know Crown may not be for everyone. Crown, which is the acronym for Clinical Research Organized Women's Network. But I know there's the Latinos in clinical research. There are just different networks that you fit in. So you find your place you fit in and you be a part of a network because, again, networking is key. It makes a
Yeah.
world of difference to have a network you belong to have a good network where people will mentor you and be a resource to you. So that was the goal, or is the goal with Crown, is to have a network where we can be a resource to mentor and support people in clinical research.
Yeah, the ecosystem that this industry has provided really since COVID is amazing. Like
Mhm.
you used to have to go, there was only two places. There was SOCRA ACRP, and you
Yeah.
had to like go to your local chapter and wait. Like I think if you're lucky, they did it every month. Otherwise, it was every quarter. You could
Yeah.
literally network every day just in the live streams
Yep.
of these lives that we do. You can there's not just me, there's others doing these live streams.
Yeah.
There's Latinos in clinical research, like you said,
Yeah.
Brown. There's
Uh,
so many different organizations out there that you can be a part of just to network, and
yeah.
a lot of them are free, and it's just you
That's
showing
the
up and
truth.
meeting people.
Yeah. So definitely that's oh, I cannot begin to stress how critical it is to network and be part of a network. And again, the one thing I do hope and pray that everyone takes away is just being a passive presence is not enough. So it's not enough to
Mhm,
just be a fly on the wall. Don't just connect and be like, oh, okay, I've connected and just sit on your fingers. Again, you have to take ownership. So you have to like reach out, participate when there's a Zoom call, when there are these live streams, you have to like connect and interact because people, this may be a little off line, but you can apply it. People do business with people they know and trust. So if I don't
mhm,
know you, how can I refer you for a job? I don't know you. I barely even know your name. So how am I going to get to know you is by the interaction. So by when I, have different online communication with you on the streams that Dan does, when I see you asking questions, so I can pick up on who you are. I'm not going to absolutely know who you are, of course not, but I'll begin to get an inkling of the type of person you are and the type of clinical researcher you would be. And that will help in me saying, oh my gosh, I have a CRC opportunity or CRA. I'm going to give that to Alicia. She is going to
yeah,
get up there. She's going to do the job. She's going to ask the questions and she's going to be an excellent such and such. So it's not
and
just
why?
joining.
Because we know her, and not we don't
Yeah.
I don't never met Alicia in
Yeah.
person, but we've
Right. But
interacted
she is
so
fully
often
engaged.
online.
Yes.
Exactly, and she's doing it herself. Like, it
Yep.
didn't just magically appear. Shout out to Alicia,
Yep.
by the way. She's coming to SOS, Save Our Sites. Are you
Nice.
coming, Jeslyn?
I
SOS, Save Our Sites
plan
conference?
to. I just need to make sure my schedule is clear for that
Mm,
week, but I plan to. When is the deadline to register? I believe it's this week.
the end of this year.
Oh, okay. So I listen. I still have time.
You still have time.
I just no, but I plan to. I just need to make sure my schedule allows me to physically be there. And
Okay.
there wouldn't be a virtual opportunity for those who can't physically be there. It's going to have to be a physical presence, correct?
Yeah, not this year. We definitely are gonna try to do that next year. This was our
Okay.
first event, and it's only
Wow.
a 1 day thing, so we didn't want to
I'm so
complicate it.
excited.
We
Yes.
just wanted to get it done, like,
Yeah.
get an easy win. Well, it's not easy, but it's just
Nothing is.
the easiest event you can have, and
Yeah.
it's still difficult. It's
Mhm.
much more difficult than you can imagine just planning for one thing. But
Yeah.
next year, 2025, hopefully we do the
Okay. So
virtual
for
elements.
2024, for those who are possibly just for the first time, first time just hearing about this, or maybe don't know
Yeah,
the finalized details, like what day, location, what people need.
February 2nd, 2024, Tucson,
Mhm.
Arizona. It's a Friday.
Nice.
It's on the University of Arizona campus. That's where I went as an
Nice.
undergrad. Um, and that's the first location, inaugural location.
Mm.
I think 2025 will be somewhere else. So
Okay.
we're gonna switch up the locations and the dates,
Mm.
because February is cold in a lot of places, but not Arizona.
Oh,
Arizona's nice and warm.
okay.
Today's gonna be like 75 here. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it's nice. So everybody get your
Nice.
tickets. Look, you're right. It's only like 12 days left. But end of this year, 2023 is it. We're cutting off
Yeah.
tickets, saveoursites.com. And then thank you
Nice.
so much, Gislin, for teaching
Thank
our
you.
bonus classes on the CRAacademy.com. That course
Yes.
starts the week of January 7th. So
Yes.
get in now. There are spots left. But the holidays, like that week, be of Christmas and New
Mm.
Year. is always our highest enrolling 2 weeks.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it makes sense. New Year's
Everyone waits till
resolution,
the last
people have
minute.
downtime, people are gonna do their
Yeah.
due diligence, and Jeslin's been teaching this for a while, and, uh, weren't you a student in one of them
I
at one
actually
point?
both of them
Whoa.
went through the CRC
Jeez.
and the CRA. I was ready. So
Wow.
I don't know if you remember how I met you is when you were doing a lot of YouTube videos, I all but stalked you. So tell your wife I'm sorry, but I was one of your stalkers. Yes, I was. So
Thank you,
every
thank you.
little thing you posted on YouTube, I was just eating up, joining in, and I mean, I was having it on replay in my head. I'm playing it every moment that I had. So that's how I started learning, started engaging, and at what point I reached out to you about the training, and as at the time when I reached out, you told me the cost, and I remember thinking, well, hey Ashley, I hope to be there at the SOS. Yes. But yeah, I reached out to you about the CRC training program, and you told me the cost, and so then my pocket wasn't in agreement with that cost. So I had to have that hard conversation with myself and not fall into that typical, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. Why are you charging me? I had to just realize that it's not expensive, it's just outside of my budget. And so I had to kind of like pivot and make the accommodations. And next thing I know, I was able to get into the class, went through it. Monica was just awesome. The information was beyond awesome. And not too long after I started the class, I got my first CRC job. Started working.
Wow.
And then as soon as that was done, out there, say about just about a year later, I got into CRE Academy. And ironically, I would say maybe just under a year after CRE Academy, I got my outside of the SCS because I started working with you about that time frame after I got through. I worked with you for a hot minute, still working with you, thank the Lord.
Mhm, mhm.
And then I started freelancing at different CROs and got just under a year, I dare say probably about 8 months after the CRA Academy. I got a job at a CRO. It's a popular CRO. I don't want to call their name because it was a toxic environment. So
That's the one.
yeah, I'm like, listen, your paper does not accommodate the craziness. Like, you're not about to kill me for a paper.
This was such a good testimonial, without
Yes.
the toxic part, but
Yes.
you said now I remember, and this was not meant to be a
Mhm.
testimonial, but it's probably best.
Sorry, y'all.
No, no, but it's great, thank you. Uh,
Uh-huh.
you said you compared that big CRO's onboarding program with ours.
Yes. Oh my gosh, the difference is night and day. So that's the key is with the CROs, they're a larger entity and they're not training focused. Their focus is to onboard you and get you on a study like the next second. So I remember going through it, and I actually spoke with my good friend. She's also a CRA. She's a senior CRA on track to become like a CTM. And I told her, I said, I am so beyond glad and grateful to God that I went through the CRC and CRA Academy training before I started there, because if I did not, I would have been even more confused and conflicted because the training is it's lacking. It gives you very high level, if you will, training on things that you're like, well, first of all, come back. What do you mean by PI? What do you mean by this? They do not train you, long story short. And if you don't have the good, strong foundational training and knowledge given to you in programs like the CRA Academy and CRC Academy, when you get on the job, it will make it dramatically harder. And yes, they say they train you, they don't.
So you know why? I figured out
Yeah.
recently. Well, not recently, but
Huh.
it's kind of intuitive if you break it down. They do CYA training, cover your ass,
There you go.
and they they're not interested. Well, they would love that you come in. They expect that you're already coming in with some working knowledge.
Knowledgeable? Yes.
So
True.
their training they give you is in case they get audited or sued
Mhm,
by a
mhm.
sponsor or a regulator, and
Yeah.
they say, "Did you train your staff?" Like, that's just
Yes.
legal, check the box stuff.
Yes.
It's nothing practical that's gonna help you when you're on site and the
Yep.
coordinator's not there, and what do you do? Do you pack up and go home, or do you continue the visit?
Yep.
That kinda stuff.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Jeslyn, for that testimonial.
Oh, thank you for all you do, Dan. Honestly, on behalf of all of your audience and the new transitioning staff and those who are leveling up in clinical research, thank you for being a resource for these live videos, for the podcast, for the opportunity, and for the platform. It is invaluable. And I am sure a lot of people do, but I definitely appreciate you. So thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Jeslyn, I appreciate it. Everybody go connect with Jeslyn right now. She's someone you have to connect with, whether you join the CRA Academy or not, or the
Yes.
CRC Academy or not. Her link is underneath, and her Crown networking. Uh, well, just message her and she'll tell you about that.
Sweet. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeslyn. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. It will catch you all later. Go follow right now with Jeslyn. Bye bye.
Bye.